The closest the church ever got to extinction took place with the man who built this structure behind me. I'm standing in front of Diocletian's baths. Diocletian was the final of the persecuting emperors. He was the one who led the most complete extinction-level event against the church. There were 3 waves of persecution. In our studies of the book of Romans, we learned about Nero. Nero was a sporadic, kind of like flailing against anyone, and he happened to hit the Christians. That was the first era of persecution. The second era we've also studied, especially with the time at Patmos with John in Revelation. John was exiled by the second wave of persecution, Domitian, and followed by Trajan. And that's the persecution that swept up the saints in Smyrna, that swept up John, and he was exiled to Patmos. It's also when the provinces had entire province-wide persecutions. All of these events were basically the first and the second only touched a small part of the Roman Empire, but not Diocletian. Diocletian reigned from 284 to 305, and in those 21 years, he began the most systematic purge of Christianity. But to show you how good he was at everything he did, the building behind me, 1.3 million square feet, the largest of all the ancient Roman bath palaces. This had all of the delights the Romans loved in the Roman bath that 3,000 people at once could enjoy. And basically this whole square of Republica follows the pattern of this gigantic bath. But that's not all that Diocletian did. He was a superior administrator. He fixed the Roman roads, all 54,000 miles of them. He fixed all of the administration of the Roman Empire, even down to what the people needed on a very personal level, so that they were very comfortable with the city of Rome and all the other provinces. He was very good as an emperor and very harsh. He won his battles, and he always accomplished his engineering desires, like this bath behind me. And when he turned his focus on the church, it became the last and greatest persecution. He came closest to ending Christianity that anybody has ever done, until we get to the book of Revelation. When Satan gets a chance to be confined to this world, we read in Revelation 12, this is what he does to believers. It says, well, starting in verse 10, "And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, 'Now salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ has come. The accuser of our brethren who accused them before our God day and night has been cast down to earth.'" Satan, when he's cast down to earth, begins the systematic pursuit of God's chosen people of promise, the Jews, and all of the saints. And there is great martyrdom, so that they overcome him, verse 11, by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives unto death. What did Diocletian do? Diocletian, number one, began by eradicating all of the ministers of the gospel. He killed every known pastor he could find. Either they were in prison or they were killed. Secondly, he went through and destroyed wherever the churches met. That's why there is really no meeting place that we know of, archaeologically speaking, still standing anywhere of the early church that's before the 300 AD. There are none left because he systematically, throughout the whole empire, destroyed them, systematically killed all of the pastors, and finally, he realized this book that I'm teaching from and that you're a part of this course in, he knew this was vital. So he sent his legions out to destroy all the copies of the Bible. Guess what? You can go through any of the great museums of the world, even the great historic seminaries, and you'll find there is no complete manuscript of the Bible that predates Diocletian. He did it. He destroyed all of them. There are none that are earlier than his reign. Now, what did the believers do? The same thing they did under communism's purge. The believers in communism would cut their Bibles into pieces and spread it out in the congregation so that everyone had a piece. That's what the early believers did. They cut the manuscripts into pieces. And now we find 25,000 fragments of the scriptures that preserve for us the entire Bible, but never a complete manuscript copy. Well, Diocletian finally came to an impasse. It was during his reign that some of the great martyr stories come out, where his legionnaires were called to destroy an entire town, to kill every person, 10,000 people, throw them off the cliffs. And the legionnaires finally said, we won't do this. And many, many of his troops, his legionnaires, came to Christ and became believers. He had to start executing legionnaires. And that's why Diocletian became the first Roman emperor to retire. He wasn't killed in battle. He wasn't assassinated or poisoned. He didn't die of dissipation. He quit. He said, that's it. He could not defeat Christianity, so he just stopped. And at that moment, a young general, one of the other leaders of the empire, Constantine, came forth, defeated the others of the tetrarchs, and established Christianity to be legal. That's the history of this bath, of the extinction level event, and of the history of the growth of the early church into the Roman Catholic Church. But what's the lesson? Revelation 12:11. Because back then and today, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony and by being faithful unto death. I just wonder today, are you ready for persecution to come? It's coming in our day. We're not in the tribulation, but many people will feel we are, the tighter the noose gets on Christianity. How do we be faithful? Not in our own strength. The grace of God that brings salvation can also keep us faithful to the end. Diocletian's baths, the extinction level event, the closest Christianity got to extinction. The man who did it was the engineer who built this largest Roman building of all time, this wonder of engineering, and this man who couldn't defeat God. The church survived, and we're a part of it today.